So today we're going to learn how to solve rational equations. So guys, yesterday we did stuff like this, where you could just cross multiply. Here, we cannot cross multiply because we have more than two items, okay? So we cannot cross multiply here to solve. So when you cannot cross multiply, these are the steps. First, we're going to clear the fractions by multiplying the whole thing by the least common denominator. Okay? Clear the fractions means eliminate fractions. We don't want to deal with fractions. So guys, let's think about what the least common denominator is for this first example. 20. That's the least common denominator. If I wanted to make these the same, do not copy this down. I could turn this into 20 by multiplying by 4, and I can turn this into 20 by multiplying it by 5. So the common denominator is 20. They would both become 20. Does that make sense, guys? So everyone write this part down. Write this down. The least common denominator is 20. Okay, so what that means, we're going to multiply this entire problem by 20. That is what step 1 says. If you do not understand this sentence, rewrite it in simpler terms. Get rid of fractions by multiplying by the least common denominator. That is what step 1 is saying. So guys, let's go ahead and multiply by 20. I'm going to have x minus 2 over 5. That's the first fraction, but we're going to multiply it by 20. So guys, put a 20 there. Minus, I'm going to multiply the 20 by this middle fraction. This will become 20 times x minus 5 over 4. Next, I'm going to do the final item also by 20. So negative 2 times 20 is negative 40. Now, you guys are going to see that by doing this, the fractions will be gone. Guys, what is 20 divided by 5? 4. So this becomes 4x minus 2. What's 20 over 4? This will become 5 times x minus 5. So step 1 is to get rid of the fractions by multiplying by the least common denominator. From here, it gets pretty simple. You just have to solve for x. So I'm going to distribute 4 times x is 4x. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Think of this whole thing as a negative 5. We're going to do negative 5 times x, which is negative 5x. Negative 5 times negative 5 will give you a positive 25 equals negative 40. So let's go ahead and combine my x's together. I have 4x minus 5x. What will that be? Good, I heard someone say negative 1x. Now let's do our numbers. So I'll highlight the numbers. I want negative 8 plus 25. What is that? 17 equals negative 40. Okay, we want to get x by itself. So what shall I do to both sides? Yep, subtract 17. So I'll get negative 1x is equal to negative 57. Now what should I do? Divide by a negative 1. So x is 57. All right, now remember, you want to make sure you check for extraneous solutions. So I'm going to plug this answer back into the original problem and make sure it makes sense. So let's check our answer. I'm going to go back to the original problem here. I'm going to plug in a 57 here where I see an X and a 57 here. So guys, think with me. What's 57 minus 2? 55, and that's over 5, minus 57 minus 5 is 52. Let's see if this equals negative 2. What's 55 divided by 5? 11. What's 52 divided by 4? Perfect. Is this a true statement? 11 minus 13 equals negative 2? No. Yep, this is true. So that means this is a solution. I'll go ahead and box my answer. X is 57. All right, let's try a different example. Okay. We have to think about what is the least common denominator. Okay. If you can't think of it immediately, just think, how do I make the denominators the same? What is this one missing? An X. Now the denominators are the same. So what's my least common denominator? X. Okay, so let me erase that. Everyone write that down. Least common denominator is X. Well, now we know what to multiply by. So we're going to multiply this entire thing by X. You do not have to change any of these fractions. All we're doing is multiplying by X. Okay, so we're going to multiply X times this first X, and what do we get? X squared minus 12 times X is 12X, and that's over X. X times 1 is X. Any questions on this part? Okay. All right, so guys, let's look. Do you guys see that these X's cancel? Yeah. Yay, so that means we have no more fractions. We can write this as X squared minus 12 equals X. Okay, look what I'm going to do, guys. I'm going to move this X to the other side. When I move it to the other side, what does it become? A negative X. The minus 12 can stay the same. Now I can factor it. Move this X to the other side, making it a negative X. Okay, now we can factor. So I need two numbers that will multiply to negative 12, add to negative 1. Perfect. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. If you add them, you'll get negative 1. So guys, that means I can write this as X minus 4 times X plus 3. Those are my factors. Now I want to solve. Yep, I have to equal both of them to 0. Thank you. So I'll do X minus 4 and equal it to 0, and I'll do X plus 3 and equal it to 0. And then you just solve. So I can add 4. X is 0 plus 4 is 4. So that's one answer. Subtract 3. X equals 0 minus 3 is negative 3. So these are my two answers. Okay, now let's check and make sure we're right. So I'm going to go back to the original problem. I'm going to erase all of this. Let's make sure I'm right. So let's test the first one. We got 4 for our first answer. If I put a 4 here and a 4 here, I'll get 4 minus, what's 12 over 4? 3. Is 4 minus 3 1? Great. So when I plugged in a 4, it made sense. So this is good. I'll put a check by it. Let's check the other one. I'm going to now plug in a negative 3. So I'll put a negative 3 where this X is and a negative 3 here. So I get negative 3 minus, what's 12 over negative 3? Negative 4. What do two negatives make? Okay, so guys, is negative 3 plus 4 1? Good, so they both work. They're both solutions. We did not have an extraneous solution. All right, next one. You guys can do this one. It's just like the previous one. let's move on to this one and then we'll be done. So guys, we need to figure out what the least common denominator is. So before we do this, let's look at this one right here, this first fraction. I'm going to do an eye chart. I need two numbers that multiply to -9, but add to 0. Good, -3 and 3. So this first fraction can be written as 2 over x minus 3, x plus 3. That's what this first fraction can be written as. I'm going to bring down the rest. Is everyone okay? All right, so guys, what are the denominators missing so that all of them can be the same? What does this one need? It needs an x plus 3, and what does this one need? Okay, so guys, what's the common denominator? Yep, the denominator is x plus 3 and x minus 3. So that's my least common denominator. All right, you guys don't actually have to change it. I just need to know what the common denominator would be, what it would be, okay? So the least common denominator is right up here. That's what we're going to multiply by. So everyone, go ahead, take your parentheses. We're going to multiply it by the least common denominator. When we do that, all of this will go to the first one. This will become 2 times. I'll have x plus 3, x minus 3. And then I have x minus 3, x plus 3 in the denominator. That's the first one. Next one, plus all of this will go to the 5. So this will be 5 times x plus 3, x minus 3. And in the denominator, it didn't change. And then all of this will go to the 3. So this will be 3 times, and then I'll have x plus 3, x minus 3. The denominator is still x plus 3. I know it looks complicated, but look how simple it will get. This cancels with that. No more fraction. That cancels, so we don't have a fraction anymore. That cancels with that. This cancels with that. No more fraction. So let's look at what's left over. I have 2 plus 5 times x plus 3 equals 3 times x minus 3. That's what's left over. That is why every time we multiply by the LCD, the least common denominator, because when you do that, all the fractions disappear and it becomes simple algebra. Now you just solve 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 3 is 15. Equals 3 times x is 3x. 3 times -3 is -9. Okay, I'm going to combine terms. So we can do 2 plus 15, that's 17. So we'll have 5x plus 17 equals 3x minus 9. Put the x's on one side, that's a 3. So I'm going to subtract 3x, subtract 3x. I'm left with, I'm going to come up here. 5x minus 3x is 2x. What do I do now? Thank you, Jaden. Subtract 17. So I get 2x equals, what is this? -26, thank you. And then I divide both sides by 2. You'll get x is -13. And always, guys, plug it back in, make sure it works. Okay, number 4. Guys, what does this denominator need? Or let me. Okay. This one is missing an x plus 2. Do you guys see that? What is this one missing?
4.
A 4. What does this need?
Everything.
It needs a 2 to make it a 4, and it needs an x plus 2, right? Okay, so that means this denominator is now 4 times x plus 2. This one is 4 times x plus 2. This one, 2 times 2 is 4, x plus 2. So guys, what would you say is the least common denominator? 4 times x plus 2. So just think about, how do I make them the same? That's your least common denominator. Okay. Everyone okay on that part? Okay, so you don't have to change the denominators. You just need to think about, what would I do to make them all the same? Now that we know what the least common denominator is, you just multiply this entire thing by the least common denominator. Okay, so you should have this on your paper. Now we're just going to multiply in. What is all of this times 1? Well, what's 1 times 4? It's still just 4. And then you have the x plus 2. And it's over 4. Let's do the next one. This times this. 3x times 4x plus 2 over x plus 2. If you want to, you can turn this into a 12x. That's also fine. Okay, next. All of this times 1. 1 times 4 is just 4. X plus 2 over 2. All right, now we get to cancel things out. These 4's cancel. I no longer have a fraction. This cancels. No more fractions. What's 4 divided by 2? It's just 2. No more fractions. So let's write down what we have. X plus 2 plus, what's 3x times 4? This is 12x. Equals 2 times x plus 2. All right, let's combine terms. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 2 is 4. What is x plus 12x? 13x plus 2. Now we solve. Cross this 2x out, put a minus 2x over here. This is now 13x minus 2x is 11x. Plus 2 equals 4. Now we can subtract 2. Subtract 2. We get 11x equals 2. Divide both sides by 11. That's your answer.